Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. Today's video, we're going to be talking about the movie Obsession. I watched it so that you guys don't have to, and let you know what I think about it, what movies I'd compare it to, so that way you know more or less if it's something that would be up your alley. And I'm also going to talk about some additional movies that are streaming that I watched recently, just to let you know about those as well, so that way if you're not going to the movie theaters, then you still have something to watch. Let's get into it. And I will tell you, I'm not going to give away any spoilers in this review, so fear not. You will not have to avoid the rest of this video because I am not going to give anything major away. I would not do that to you guys. If I ever do a review that has spoilers, I will definitely let you know ahead of time, so that way you don't run into that and ruin it for yourself. Obsession is a movie that is all about the be careful what you wish for trope, and it has all to do with a kind of awkward main character who is secretly in love with his childhood friend and has just been too chicken to tell her about it, and wants to but just can't, and then stumbles upon this thing called a one wish willow, and it's this little stick that you can buy. And it's brilliant the way that they do the whole idea of this, because it's just this little very trendy looking packaging that you would normally think is just very harmless, and it's something you would buy at a counter at pretty much any kind of novelty store. And so he takes this item and just, out of desperation, because he feels like such garbage that he can't just muster the courage to tell this girl that he likes her, and he makes this really dumbfounded and ill-worded wish about wanting her to love him more than anyone else in the world. And it's all about what can go horribly wrong when you want something that really isn't meant for you. Something I think is really important when it comes to how to gauge whether or not you want to see a movie or not is what kind of movies are like that movie. I think often when I see reviews or things like that, one helpful thing that I always find is when someone says this movie is a lot like if you combined this movie or that movie. For Obsession, I think it's a mix of the movie Talk to Me and the movie Smile, if you also sprinkled a little bit of Hereditary and Terrifier. And if you're a true horror fan and you have seen all of those movies, and if you watch this movie, please definitely comment below and let me know if you agree with that, and if you are familiar with the parts of the movie that I'm mentioning and why this movie reminds me of those. The parts of the movies that I would say that this is related to, the reason that I think it's like those movies is it has the serious acting chops and super creepiness that Smile and Hereditary have in them. And I did find it really cool that the main actress who's in this movie did say that she took the inspiration for her character and the way that she portrayed it directly from Toni Collette's portrayal of her character in Hereditary. Brilliant thing to do. I mean, that movie, you cannot deny, has really, really great acting in it. You can definitely tell that she took that inspiration because the acting is just, it's rare that there's really, really strong acting skills that you say, man, that was incredible as far as the range that person is capable of, at least for me, and especially when it comes to a horror movie. So to be able to say that about this movie, and for this actress to be relatively new in her career, I am very excited to see what she does in the future, and I will definitely be looking at movies with her name on them, just because I can tell already that she is going to be a stellar actress, especially when it comes to horror. For it being adjacent to Talk to Me and Terrifier, the reason for that is because there are just themes and elements that very much mirror Talk to Me, and also there's just little things that reminded me just instantly of Terrifier. And if you have seen those movies, you'll know why, and I'm not going to let go of any secrets of scenes that are in the movie before you get to see it if you are planning to see it, but just know you'll have those things to look out for when you watch the movie. Major trigger warning though, I will say that if you've dealt with any kind of a abusive relationship, SA, SH, and if you don't care for intense anxiety-riddled movies or hardcore gore in a movie or in horror period, then I would say this is definitely not the movie for you, and you should know that going in. I am a tenured horror movie watcher, and I can tell you that some of the scenes I was not entirely prepared for. Just like Hereditary, this is a movie that absolutely will punch you in the gut and leave that kind of uneasy feeling in your stomach where you're like, okay, I need to listen to some happy music and go watch something happy or funny afterward, just to make sure I kind of wash that whole thing off my brain. Which honestly, for a horror movie, well done, because that's more or less what I think the goal is of some horror movies, kind of like Hereditary in this one, and Talk to Me, all of them really, and Smile. They're kind of in a subgenre of themselves where I think it's just intense horror. If you're not prepared for that level, then I think that is something that could take you off guard, and I just think that that's something that people should know before going into the movie. On the flip side to that, if you're someone who enjoyed Hereditary, if you liked the movie Talk to Me, if you had no issues or weren't squeamish at all for Smile 1 or 2, then you are absolutely going to love this movie. This movie is very, very adjacent to those. And if you enjoyed those and you had no issues whatsoever, then know that you're going to absolutely have a great time in theaters on this one. Now let's go into the test that I do for all movies, so that way you know how I gauge my experience at the movie and what I test or rate a movie on, so that way you understand how I come up with my overall rating for a movie. First thing I ask myself is, was the movie as good as the trailer? Did it live up to expectations based on what I saw in the trailer? For Obsession, I think it definitely passed. There was nothing that I got in the movie that I didn't see coming, more or less, from the trailer. I would say, if anything, it's going to wholly overall surpass your expectations based on the trailer, because there's just so much more to it, and it is just a super intense, nonstop, anxiety-riddled horror fest the entire time. If that is what you're looking for, you will not be disappointed. So if you are looking at the trailer and expecting anything like lightweight scares or it not being that bad, be warned, because it is not for the weak-hearted. That's for sure. Another test I do is the husband sleep test, and this is for the sleepy movie watcher. My husband is someone who is asleep in a matter of minutes if a movie does not engage him, if it slows too much at any point, or if the plot line loses him altogether, then he is just lights out, not interested. I'd rather be asleep. I respect it, but it is something that I unfortunately do not share. For me, if I paid for the movie ticket and if I am interested in the overall plot of the movie, then I'm watching it start to finish and I want to see how it ends and what happens. So I do this test so that way I can tell you guys, if you are this type of movie watcher, or if you have somebody in your life that watches movies with you who may want to know if it's going to be a snooze fest and to prepare for it, this is the test for you to pay attention to. Obsession passed the overall husband sleep test. He did not fall asleep. I will tell you, I did catch him yawn maybe once, but that is likely because there are some quiet moments that get a little anxious. And for those parts, it did get him a little bit sleepy, so I was nervous that he was going to go to sleep and leave me watching it alone. However, that did not happen. I think because there's these intense moments and there are a lot of from very quiet to super loud moments, that was probably enough to make sure that he stayed awake. Speaking of that, I also do something called the balance test, which is my gauge on whether a movie overall pacing, was it good? Did it keep me entertained as far as it having enough action and scary parts to justify any of the slow parts? I feel that this one passes. It has, even in its slow or quiet moments, these eerie background things going on that are creepy enough that it just kind of makes you uneasy and pay attention, because you're kind of hoping that nothing creepier happens in the background while you're watching. It's almost like it kind of puts you in the perspective of the main character, where you're just like, oh, what's going to happen next? This is, it's kind of a cloud overhead. It's going to get way worse before it's over. And so because of that, you just kind of feel that looming doom overhead, and that always keeps me engaged. And because of that, it definitely passed. Another is, would I rewatch or buy this movie? Both are a yes. However, there is a caveat. I would say yes, I would rewatch and buy the movie. However, I would rewatch it sparingly, because it is such an intense movie. Just like with Hereditary, it is a great movie. However, I have kind of a low tolerance for the very, very intensely dark movies. I do have to watch those in low doses, because it can get to be a lot. For example, I think Midsummer I only watched the one time, and I just don't think I can ever watch that movie again. It's just one of those things where, even though, again, it was a well done movie and it executed exactly what it aimed to do, I just can't bring myself to do it. I can't watch it again. So this one I think I could watch again. It's just, I have to choose my moments. And I think that it'll be a way better experience for me at home because I know now what's coming in the movie. I know how it ends. I know when the more intense parts are coming. So it'll be a little easier for me to stomach when I'm watching it at home. Not to mention that I'm in my own environment and I can choose to shut it off if I want to, or I can choose to watch something else immediately after or during it if I feel like it, or distract myself with my phone if I need to. So I think that those things matter when it comes to that. So that's why I mentioned that to you guys. Now, biggest question of them all is, what did I overall rate this movie? My overall rating for Obsession is an 8 out of 10. The acting takes this movie just through the roof. It's the same as Hereditary, even though there may not be 100% perfect moments throughout the entire thing. It overall executes on so many levels. The acting is phenomenal. The overall dark horror theme of the whole thing is great. There are these awkward moments that are absolutely going to stick with you and stain your brain for sure. The anxiety that is built as a watcher in this movie are absolutely unparalleled. For all of those reasons, it is absolutely an 8 out of 10. I think I would have rated it maybe a smidge higher and bumped it to a 9. Had some of the uncomfortable or awkward moments made a little more sense to me, and them not just been flat out uncomfortable or confusing, or made me laugh out of just sheer WTF, you know? So that's why I think it's not as high as a 9 for me. Entirely okay if you've watched this movie and you think it's a 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10. That's the great thing about opinions. We all have them and they're all different. And you can definitely have a different experience, especially based on where you're coming from and what you've seen, movies you like, movies you don't like. But I would love to know, if you watched this movie, what you thought of it, what your favorite parts, worst parts, hopefully without spoilers, so that way it doesn't ruin it for anyone else. But absolutely let me know in the comments below. Now, for a couple of the movies that I have been watching on streaming lately, so that way if you're not planning to be in theaters and you want to know if there's any good movies that you might want to watch out there, I'm going to let you know what I thought of these, just so that way if you have had them on your watch list, just haven't actually pulled the trigger on watching them yet, then this can be either your ticket to watch them, or it can be your reason not to watch them. The first one I'm going to talk about is Apex. And Apex is about a woman who is basically an adventurer, and she goes into these really extreme environments to either climb or hike, whitewater raft. Her partner kind of gets tired of it and is like, okay, enough's enough. Eventually this is not going to be something we can just keep doing, but she's insistent on continuing to do it, and this is just really about her going headfirst into that whole lifestyle. Apex stars Charlize Theron, and I got some feelings about it. So it kind of reminds me of Cape Fear and Hannibal for a couple of different reasons, with a sprinkle of Wrong Turn. And for the trailer test, I think it passes. It pretty much delivers what it aims to as far as the morsel that you get in the trailer. It actually failed the husband sleep test, and I will tell you a big part of why, and honestly it lost me a little for the same exact reason. And that's because when a main character almost seems intent on doing reckless things to put themselves in harm's way, it makes it really hard for me to want to root for the person and hope that, you know, they make it out of a bad situation, because pretty much you had super red flags going, hey, please don't go there, please don't do this, and the person still decides or insists on going headfirst into the danger, and it just makes you go. And because of that, for my husband, that is one of those things that will just kind of turn the lights out and he's just not interested and is going to go to sleep. So it failed the husband sleep test for that reason. But I kept watching only because I was like, okay, well, who out of these two is going to win? As far as, you know, the villain versus the protagonist. And that's really the reason that I wanted to stay up and watch it, was I wanted to know what's going to come out of this. Who is going to come out on top, and is it going to leave it open for a next movie? And that's why I watched it. But overall, I do think that because of that, it did also fail the balance test. I didn't care enough what happened to the main character. Somewhere in the middle, I just started thinking like, and they really should have done better to at least make us like the main character a little more for us to want to root for her. Because every time there's an underdog movie and you actually find reasons to like the main character, it just makes the connection that much stronger and the character development stronger to where you root for the person and you want to see them succeed. Would I rewatch or buy the movie? I would not buy the movie. I would maybe rewatch it for free because the scenery in this movie is beautiful. It does kind of make you want to go camping or hiking because there's so many scenes of beautiful mountains and streams and scenery and things like that. So because of that, I think I would rewatch it, but I definitely wouldn't pay to do that. And what would I rate this one? Overall, out of 10, I would rate this one a 6 out of 10. It just wasn't strong enough in character development, again, for me to care. And because of that, that's why it just didn't feel like it was strong enough for that. I actually think I liked Eric Bana's character more, and he's in the movie probably a 10th of what the rest of the characters are in it. And that is just a bad realization, you know, when the other characters are actually working the entire movie. But anyway, if you're bored and looking for something to watch and you want some good scenery and maybe just some kind of something to watch in the background while you're doing something, like working on a project, I don't think this one is a bad one to watch necessarily. I just think that if you're looking for substance and character development, not necessarily the one for you. Another movie, and I actually watched both of these on Netflix, I believe, and another one of those is Thrash. Thrash, in a nutshell, is a giant hurricane that breaks these levees and provides all these shark-infested waters on top of a already dangerous situation, putting everyone in danger. And it's supposed to be bull sharks, and they are making them just like level 10 aggressive, and kind of like the movie Piranha, where they just instantly come at and tear people apart. Thrash, when it comes to comparisons to other movies, is like a mix of the movie Crawl and The Meg with a hint of Geostorm. So if you took a little bit of all those and mixed it together, then you would get this movie. The miss for me on this one versus Crawl or even The Meg is, again, character development. There are a whole series of characters that it kind of jumps back and forth from. Someone who insists on staying behind because she has agoraphobia. Another person who is pregnant and near giving birth and gets stuck before she can leave. And then a group of foster kids whose rotten, awful foster parents refuse to acknowledge really that the weather's going to get bad at all. So they're kind of stuck in the situation. And I think that the miss there is that they should have focused on one, not a whole bunch of different ones, because there's just not enough time or information for you to really feel like you connected with any of the characters or care about them as much as you should. The one set of characters that I think should have been the main focus and that it would have been a great movie to base it off of are a set of foster kids that are having to figure out and maneuver how to get their really miserable foster parents to react effectively to the hurricane that is impending. And you really do root for them, and I wish that more of the focus had been on those characters because they were really solid, and I would have enjoyed the movie a whole lot more had it been focused on them instead. This one did, however, pass the husband sleep test, and I think it's because even though there's not a lot of character development, it has a lot of action going on that keeps you entertained, and that's because it's revolving around a hurricane filled with sharks. So obviously that's got a lot more action-y type involvement than your average movie, and because of that, it kept him entertained enough to keep him awake. Balance, I think they did really well on the balance for this one because it starts out really strong with it talking about the hurricanes and what's going to happen, and there's a lot of scenes of intense disaster type situations, and then there's also the sharks. There's characters in peril that you're worrying are going to be in danger, and so all of those things do keep you engaged in what's going on the screen. Would I rewatch or buy the movie? I would rewatch it, but for free. I don't think I would pay for this one. I think it's one that isn't bad to have in your rotation if you're wanting to watch a disaster movie, especially if you don't require a ton of quality in your disaster movies. Then this one is not a bad one to watch, but I just wouldn't spend money on it personally. Overall, what would I rate this movie out of 10? For Thrash, I would rate it a 5 out of 10. I just really don't think it did enough to warrant a higher rating. The characters, again, just were not developed enough. I think I would have liked it even more, or it would have been maybe even a 7 had they kicked up at least the humor aspect of it, because you can tolerate a kind of average movie if it makes you laugh. But this one just wasn't. It was just more serious, so that kind of took that away. So if you liked this video, make sure that you do hit that like button. And if you like this content and you want to know more about horror movies or movies in general, then definitely hit that subscribe button and notification bell so that way you can get notified when I post a new video. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.